My name is Claire Bennett. I am 33 years old. The morning I walked into that courtroom alone, my mother-in-law, Diane Carter, was already smiling. She sat on one side of the room wearing a black blazer and a pearl necklace. Her lawyer sat beside her in a gray suit. Behind them sat my sister-in-law, Vanessa Carter, with her arms folded and her chin lifted high. They looked confident. Like they had already won. I carried only one thing. A brown leather briefcase. My husband Ethan Bennett had given it to me for my 31st birthday. It looked ordinary. But inside it was 6 months of work. 6 months of receipts. 6 months of records. 6 months of evidence. And one document nobody in that room expected to see. Not Diane. Not Vanessa. Not their lawyer. None of them knew what was inside that briefcase. And none of them knew what the judge was about to hear. But before I tell you about that day, I need to go back to the beginning. Ethan and I bought our house the year we got married. It was a small 2-bedroom home on a quiet street. Nothing fancy. Just a simple house with white siding, a chain-link fence, and a dogwood tree in the front yard. Ethan planted that tree himself. He used to joke that every home needed at least one living thing that wasn't paying rent. He was a plumber. He owned his own business. Every morning he woke up before sunrise. By 5:30, he was already dressed in work boots and loading tools into his van. I worked as a paralegal. I spent my days helping prepare wills, trusts, and estate documents. I wasn't a lawyer. But I knew probate law very well. We weren't rich. We had a mortgage. A savings account. A life insurance policy. And we had something else. A will. For years before Ethan died, we sat together in my boss's office and signed it. It was simple. Everything went to each other. No confusion. No questions. No surprises. At least that was what we thought. Ethan's family lived nearby. Diane lived about 25 minutes away. Vanessa lived in another city. And Ethan's uncle, Roger Carter, lived north of town. We saw them during holidays. Thanksgiving. Christmas. Easter. The usual family gatherings. Diane was always polite to me. But it was the kind of polite that felt cold. Like she was speaking to a stranger she had to tolerate. Vanessa was different. She often borrowed money from Ethan. And she never paid him back. Still, Ethan loved his family. So I tried my best. Then everything changed on a Tuesday in September. I was sitting at my desk reviewing documents when my boss received a phone call. She listened. Then she looked at me. The expression on her face scared me immediately. "Claire," she whispered. My stomach dropped. I knew something was wrong. Very wrong. A truck had run a red light. Ethan's van was hit. The doctors said he died before the ambulance arrived. I don't remember much after hearing those words. I drove to the hospital anyway. I sat in a cold hallway. A nurse handed me a small envelope. Inside was Ethan's wedding ring. I stared at it for a long time. My entire world had disappeared. And somehow I was still expected to keep breathing. The days after Ethan's death felt unreal. I arranged the funeral. I contacted clients. I called family members. I canceled appointments. I dealt with insurance paperwork. I picked out flowers. I chose songs. I signed forms. I kept moving because if I stopped, I was afraid I would completely fall apart. Diane came to the house the first night. She sat at my kitchen table and cried. Real tears. I held her hand. Because no matter what happened later, she had lost her son. That pain was real. I never doubted that. What I doubted later was what she believed that loss entitled her to do. The funeral took place on a Saturday. White lilies covered the church. Family members filled the pews. When the pastor invited people to speak, Diane stood immediately. She talked about raising Ethan alone. She talked about working extra shifts. She talked about sacrifices. She talked about his childhood. She talked for several minutes. And during all that time, she never mentioned me. Not once. Not my name. Not our marriage. Not the life Ethan and I built together. I told myself she was grieving. I tried to excuse it. But something about it bothered me. After the service, Vanessa pulled me aside. "You should let Mom handle Ethan's finances," she said. I stared at her. "Why? You're grieving. You're not thinking clearly." I almost laughed. Vanessa had never managed her own money successfully. Yet somehow she wanted control over mine. "I'll handle everything," I said. Her smile disappeared. She walked away without another word. That was the first warning sign. A second warning came from Roger. At the funeral reception, he shook my hand. Too hard. And he refused to meet my eyes. It felt strange. Uncomfortable. Like he knew something I didn't. Driving home later that evening, I kept replaying those moments in my head. Diane's speech. Vanessa's suggestion. Roger's strange behavior. Something felt wrong. I just didn't know what it was yet. 2 weeks later, Diane started visiting regularly. At first I appreciated it. She helped pack Ethan's clothes. She boxed up old tools. She organized shelves. But then I noticed something. She wasn't simply organizing. She was searching. Every time she came over, she opened drawers. She checked filing cabinets. She looked through folders. One afternoon I watched her flipping through tax records. "What are you looking for?" I asked. She smiled. "Just memories, dear." But her eyes told a different story. She wasn't looking for memories. She was hunting for something. I just didn't know what. Weeks passed. Then I learned Diane had been making phone calls. Lots of phone calls. She told relatives I had changed the locks. She told neighbors I wouldn't let her visit. She told people I was unstable. That I was shutting Ethan's family out. Every word was a lie. But people believed her. Because she started telling the story before I even realized there was a story to tell. 1 month after the funeral, Roger called. "We need to discuss Ethan's estate." His voice sounded formal. Serious. I agreed to meet. When I arrived at Diane's house, all 3 of them were waiting. Diane. Vanessa. Roger. They sat around the dining room table like a committee. Roger slid a document toward me. My heart stopped. It was a will. Supposedly signed by Ethan 2 months before his death. I read it once. Then again. Then a third time. The house went to Diane. The savings account went to Diane. The life insurance money was divided between Diane, Vanessa, and Roger. And me? I received personal belongings. That was it. Personal belongings. 7 years of marriage reduced to a few boxes. Diane folded her hands. Ethan wanted his family taken care of. I looked at the signature. And something inside me instantly froze. The signature wasn't Ethan's. Most people wouldn't have noticed. But I worked with signatures every day. I knew Ethan's handwriting. I had watched him sign hundreds of documents. His capital E always curved one way. This one curved differently. The pressure looked wrong. The flow looked wrong. Everything felt wrong. "Can I have a copy?" I asked. Roger nodded. "The original has already been filed." Filed. Before I even knew it existed. I drove home in complete silence. The moment I walked through the front door, I spread the document across my kitchen table. Then I started studying it. Like evidence. Because that's exactly what it was. Within an hour, I had identified 3 major problems. First, the signature appeared traced. Second, Ethan wasn't even in town on the date listed. Third, the witnesses were people I had never heard of before. And Ethan didn't keep secrets from me. Not like this. The next morning, I called my boss. I explained everything. She listened quietly. When I finished, she sighed. You already know what you need to do. She was right. I did. I needed to fight. And I needed proof. She gave me the name of a forensic handwriting expert. Dr. Sarah Collins. One of the best in the state. Then she wished me luck. 3 days later, I returned to Diane's house. I asked questions about the witnesses. She refused to answer. I told her I planned to challenge the will. She didn't seem surprised. Instead, she smiled. A cold smile. You came here without a lawyer. She paused. You've already lost. The confidence in her voice told me everything. This wasn't grief. This was a plan. A plan she had been building for weeks. Maybe longer. Vanessa appeared behind her. Just accept it, Claire. I looked at both of them. Mother and daughter. Standing together. Waiting for me to surrender. I'm not accepting anything, I said. I'm asking questions. Then I left. That drive home changed everything. Until then, I had been grieving. Now I was fighting. The following Monday, I officially challenged the will in court. I paid the filing fee myself. Then I started gathering evidence. Every mortgage payment. Every utility bill. Every insurance document. Every tax record. Every legitimate example of Ethan's signature. I built a file. Day by day. Page by page. Proof by proof. The thicker the file became, the stronger I felt. Because facts don't care about lies. And the facts were starting to tell a very different story. The evidence file kept growing. Every day after work, I sat at my kitchen table and added something new. A bank statement. A receipt. A signature sample. A note. A timeline. I wasn't just collecting papers anymore. I was building a wall. A wall strong enough to stop every lie Diane had told. And she knew it. That was why the pressure started getting worse. People I had known for years suddenly acted differently around me. Some stopped calling. Some stopped replying to messages. Some looked uncomfortable whenever Ethan's name came up. Diane had been busy. She had spent weeks telling everyone her version of the story. According to her, I was selfish. According to her, I was unstable. According to her, I was trying to steal what belonged to Ethan's family. It hurt. Not because I believed it. But because some people did. For a while, it felt like I was fighting the entire world alone. But I kept going. Because the truth was on my side. And eventually, the truth always matters. One afternoon, Vanessa showed up without warning. She walked straight into my house like she owned it. Then she started pointing at things. That painting belongs to the family. No, it didn't. Ethan bought it during our 5th anniversary trip. Then she pointed at silverware. That belongs to Grandma. That was another lie. It had been a wedding gift. I corrected her. Again. And again. And again. Finally, she spun around and glared at me. Her eyes were filled with anger. Not sadness. Not grief. Anger. You don't get to keep everything just because you married him. I stared at her. I'm not keeping everything. Her jaw tightened. Then she said something I would never forget. Blood is blood, Claire. You were just renting the last name. The words hit hard. Because they revealed exactly how she saw me. Not as Ethan's wife. Not as family. Just a temporary visitor. Someone who never truly belonged. I opened the front door. "I think you should leave." She stormed out. The door slammed. The windows rattled. And for several minutes, I stood there alone in silence, trying to understand how people I once called family had become strangers. Roger was different. He wasn't loud like Vanessa. He was sneaky. Quiet. The kind of person who caused problems behind the scenes. One morning, I walked outside to Ethan's storage shed. A new lock was on the door. I froze. I hadn't put it there. I immediately called Roger. "Oh, yes," he said casually. "I secured the property." "Excuse me?" "As executor, I have responsibilities." My stomach tightened. Executor? The court hadn't approved anything yet. He had no authority. None. But he was already acting like the estate belonged to him. And it got worse. A week later, I discovered he had contacted Ethan's business bank account. Money had been frozen. Access had been restricted. He was trying to take control before the court even made a decision. That was when I realized something important. This wasn't about honoring Ethan. This was about money. Nothing else. Then I found something shocking. A withdrawal. $2,800. Taken from Ethan's business account. 3 weeks after Ethan died. The authorization used Roger's name. I stared at the statement. My pulse quickened. Roger wasn't legally approved as executor when that money was taken. Which meant he had no right to touch that account. I highlighted the transaction. Added it to the evidence file. And kept going. 6 weeks later, the handwriting expert finally called. "Ms. Bennett, I have preliminary findings." My heart pounded. I drove to her office immediately. Dr. Sarah Collins greeted me and opened a large binder. Inside were enlarged photographs of Ethan's signature. Real signatures. And the fake one. Side by side. The differences were obvious. She pointed at pressure marks. Angles. Stroke directions. Graphite traces hidden beneath the ink. Then she looked directly at me. In my professional opinion, this signature was traced. I sat completely still. Not because I was surprised. Because hearing it confirmed changed everything. I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't emotional. I wasn't confused. I was right. The will was fake. That weekend, another memory surfaced. A conversation Ethan and I had years earlier. A safety deposit box. I suddenly remembered it. The key was hidden inside one of his old coats. I searched the closet. My hand shook. Finally, I found it. A small brass key. Exactly where he said it would be. The next morning, I went to the bank. A manager escorted me into the vault. My heart was racing. The box was tiny. Inside sat several documents. And right on top was something that made my breath catch. Our original will. The real one. The one Ethan and I signed 4 years earlier. The one leaving everything to each other. I stared at it. Then I noticed another folded piece of paper underneath. A handwritten note. From Ethan. I unfolded it carefully. His familiar handwriting filled the page. "Claire. If you're reading this because something happened to me, then you already know what to do. I trust you more than anyone." That was all. A few simple sentences. But they broke me. For the first time since Ethan died, I cried. Really cried. Not quiet tears. Not controlled tears. The kind of crying that comes from the deepest part of your heart. Because even after death, Ethan had found a way to stand beside me. After that, everything changed. The case became stronger. Much stronger. The evidence file now contained The fake will. The expert report. The original will. Mortgage records. Tax documents. Bank records. Roger's withdrawal. Witness statements. Everything. I organized it carefully. Every page. Every tab. Every piece of evidence. I wasn't falling apart anymore. I was preparing for battle. Then Diane's lawyer sent a settlement offer. It was insulting. They wanted the house, the savings, the insurance money. And they offered me $15,000. $15,000. For the life Ethan and I built together. I laughed. Then I rejected it. Immediately. The response was simple. No. That single word said everything. That night, Vanessa called. She sounded angry. And maybe drunk. You're going to lose. I stayed calm. Good night, Vanessa. Then I hung up. The next morning Roger tried. Lawyers are expensive, Claire. I smiled. I don't have one. Silence. Then he hung up too. That was when I knew they were nervous. Because innocent people don't beg for settlements. And innocent people don't try to scare witnesses. A few weeks later, Dr. Collins finished her final report. 22 pages. Every page was devastating. The conclusion was clear. The signature on the will was forged. No doubt. No uncertainty. No confusion. Forgery. I placed the report inside Ethan's leather briefcase. Then I waited for court. The night before the hearing, Vanessa sent a text message. Mom says you're going alone tomorrow. You've already lost. I stared at the message. Then locked my phone. I didn't answer. Because I didn't need to. The evidence would answer for me. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. For the first time in months, I felt calm. I got dressed. Picked up the briefcase. And drove to court. Diane was waiting outside the courtroom. So was Vanessa. And their lawyer. When they saw I was alone, they smiled. They thought I was weak. They thought I was scared. They thought I was walking into a fight I couldn't win. None of them knew what was inside the briefcase. Court began at 9 o'clock. The judge listened carefully. Diane's lawyer spoke first. He claimed the will was valid. He claimed I was grieving. He claimed I was confused. Then it was my turn. I stood. Took a breath. And looked directly at the judge. Your Honor, I am not confused. The room became silent. The will submitted by the petitioner is a forgery. Every eye turned toward me. And then I began presenting evidence. Mortgage records. Utility bills. Insurance documents. Bank records. Everything. One piece after another. The judge reviewed each document carefully. Then I called my first witness. Ethan's best friend. He testified about the original will. He confirmed witnessing Ethan sign it. He confirmed Ethan never mentioned another will. His testimony was strong. Honest. Believable. Then I introduced the original will from the safety deposit box. The judge compared both wills. Side by side. The difference was obvious. But I wasn't finished. Not even close. Finally, I called my last witness. Dr. Sarah Collins. The handwriting expert. The moment her name was announced, Diane's lawyer looked worried. Very worried. Dr. Collins calmly explained everything. The pressure marks. The tracing. The graphite underneath the ink. The wrong writing angle. The reversed letter patterns. Every detail pointed to the same conclusion. The signature was fake. When cross-examination began, Diane's lawyer tried desperately to challenge her findings. But every question failed. Every answer strengthened my case. Soon he sat back down. Defeated. Then I revealed one final piece of evidence. Ethan's work calendar. According to the forged will, Ethan supposedly signed the document on a specific date. But the calendar showed he was working hours away in another city. He wasn't even there. He physically could not have signed it. The courtroom fell silent. The case was over. Everyone knew it. They just hadn't admitted it yet. Then Diane stood. She tried to defend herself. She claimed Ethan wanted to help his family. She claimed he told her so. But the judge wasn't interested in stories. The judge wanted evidence. And Diane had none. Finally, she lost control. She pointed directly at me. "That's my son's house." Her voice cracked. Tears filled her eyes. "I raised him alone. I sacrificed everything." The judge struck the gavel. "Sit down." Diane sat. Shaking. Vanessa suddenly stood up. Then walked out of the courtroom. She didn't come back. The judge reviewed everything. The fake will. The original will. The expert report. The witness testimony. The calendar. The bank records. Minutes felt like hours. Then she finally spoke. "The court finds clear evidence that the signature on the submitted will is not genuine." My breath caught. The judge continued. "The document is declared invalid." Diane lowered her head. Roger stared at the floor. The judge wasn't finished. "The original will is recognized as valid." My eyes filled with tears. Then came the final ruling. The estate of Ethan Bennett passes entirely to his surviving spouse, Claire Bennett. I closed my eyes. For a moment, I couldn't move. Couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. After 6 months of fighting, it was finally over. Then came one last surprise. The judge referred the forged will for criminal investigation. The courtroom became completely silent. Diane looked stunned. Roger looked terrified. Their plan had completely collapsed. After court ended, I picked up Ethan's briefcase. It felt lighter than ever. Outside, Ethan's best friend was waiting. He smiled. "He'd be proud of you." I laughed through tears. "He'd probably be annoyed I didn't hire a lawyer." We both laughed. For the first time in months, the pain felt lighter. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. Roger hired his own attorney. The missing money was ordered repaid. Vanessa disappeared from my life completely. And Diane stopped contacting me. Maybe she was ashamed. Maybe she was angry. Maybe both. I never found out. Because some chapters are meant to stay closed. One afternoon, I sat on my front porch. Ethan's briefcase rested beside me. The dogwood tree he planted stood quietly in the yard. Spring had finally arrived. Pink blossoms covered the branches. I opened the briefcase. Inside was only one thing. Ethan's note. I read it again. "I trust you more than anyone." Simple words. But they meant everything. I smiled through tears. Because I finally understood something. I wasn't fighting for money. I wasn't fighting for a house. I wasn't fighting to win. I was fighting for the truth. For Ethan. For the life we built together. And in the end, the truth won. The lies fell apart. The forgery failed. And the people who underestimated me learned something important. Silence is not weakness. Sometimes silence means you're preparing. Sometimes silence means you're gathering proof. And sometimes silence means you're building a case so strong that when you finally speak, nobody can ignore the truth. And that is exactly what happened.